Are Ethiopians Africans? This is the question we're going to answer today because I don't know what's going on, but I know a lot of Ethiopians that think they're African and they tell me they're African, but this might have been a new phenomenon. I don't know. Yo, what's going on, people? It's your boy J-Wave in the house with another video, man. You know, I'm here, man. I made it again. Did you miss me? Listen, I apologize for this long wait, okay? So because of that, I'm gonna bless y'all with a couple videos, okay? Let's start it off. Because personally, I always thought every country in Africa will view themselves as African. But lately, you know, with my exposure to this social media and TikTok, I've realized that this might not necessarily be the case. And there might be a reason to that, right? So they might not have seen themselves as Africans at first. We have to see, because this is a very interesting thing to me, you know? So we're gonna be reacting to a couple videos. We're gonna answer some questions as we go. We're gonna react to it. Before we get into the video, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe.
To walk, like literally, people are staring at you on the road. Some people will look until they will look back like that. They're looking at you because you're visibly different. Ethiopians have a face, you know, they have a way that you look. So when they see you, they already know that you're not from here. You see, so they're like, you know, looking at you. If you're a lady, you know, the men often will tell you, oh, you look very beautiful, or where do you come from? And guys, I don't know why or how. Please don't ask me. Ethiopians don't consider themselves as Africans.
Ethiopians don't consider themselves as Africans. That's how she started. And see, they're looking at her like she's different. And that one makes sense, right? It makes sense because it seemed like from her video, and I'm going to put her link, of course, her name and everything is going to be in her video. So please go watch her, go support her, right? But clearly from her video, we can tell that, I guess Ethiopia is an isolated society, right? So it seems as though they've just grown within themselves and they've made ideology within themselves, right? And this is how it's kind of looking. It looks like now maybe because of the world is becoming more, you know, globalized, when people have an internet and stuff, maybe this is why now they're starting to see themselves differently. I don't know. Let's see. What does she mean by that?
I don't really get it, but Ethiopians, you would walk on the road and Ethiopians be like, oh, you look so beautiful. Are you African? And the day that...
Did you see her reaction? Are you African? That's an interesting thing, you know? And I asked myself that question. When I heard that, like, I was like, is it because of a language barrier? Like, is that how they describe every other African? Maybe they're trying to say, are you black or something? I don't know. Like, are you from Africa? Are you African? Because it kind of makes it seem like, are you African? For you to ask me that? Like, is there this connection there? You know what you're trying to talk. Let's see.
Someone asked me that question, I was like, excuse me, hello, hi, aren't we in Africa, or did I miss my road, you know? So I have been asked so many times, what part of, they were asked so many times, are you African, or are you from Africa? Because like, we are all from Africa, so maybe you can ask me what sub-region do you come from, or what country do you come from, not asking me, are you African, as if you are not African. Like, if a European or an American asks me, are you African, then it will make sense, but you, an African, asking me, are you African, it's like a Cameroonian asking me that, are you Cameroonian, when...
Exactly, that's a very thing to me. Like, no offense to any Ethiopian that's going to be watching this, because it's not even about the modern Ethiopians, because probably it's adult Ethiopians, maybe it's even younger Ethiopians, because this woman is relatively young. But it's like, see, for a West African, and moving forward, you guys are going to see how a West African views that, especially a West African, because I don't know about other parts of Africa if they also have this thing where they view themselves as a different entity, right? But as a West African, we see ourselves as Black Africans. We see ourselves as, you know, when people think of Africa, for the most part, right, they think of West Africans, right? So we also embody that and look at ourselves as the African. This is what I'm saying, which is not necessarily saying that other Africans are not as African. It's just that we are very proud of our Africanness. So we embrace it, right, to another level. So it's kind of, for us, it's borderline insulting to a certain extent when we feel like somebody is what we are, an African, and they don't necessarily accept being African, because it's like, then you start asking, so what's wrong with being African? What's wrong with me? Because if you have a problem being African or don't view yourself as African when you actually are, then it's kind of a problem, right? This is what I'm saying. But I don't think from the Ethiopian standpoint, it's even like that. I think it has a lot to do with them being isolated for a long time. But let's continue watching this now. We're gonna watch a different video.
From Ethiopia, 17-year-old Nabiat Tafari. It was Nabiat's suggestion that we start this discussion with a prayer in case there should be violence later. What you heard was Nabiat from Ethiopia giving a prayer in the Ge'ez language. He's a Cop by religion, Amhara by race, Hebrew in origin, and an African since he's been to America. How should we start this discussion on prejudice? Would it be unfair to ask each of you what your own prejudices are? How about you, Nabi?
Actually, I am prejudiced against the Italians, and I have been prejudiced against the Mohammedans. Since I arrived here, I have developed some new prejudices, and I never felt that I was a Negro till I came to this country.
Why?
Because my tutor in the monastery told me that I was not a Negro, but I was a sunburned Hebrew.
You see that? So this video was actually filmed in the 1950s, and what you can see is that this thing of them asking, are you African? It's not It's not a modern thing. It's an ancient thing. It's something that they've been taught. You say in the monastery, he was taught that he was not a Negro, right? Because the Negroes is pretty much us, the black Africans that they talk about, that they call Negroes back in the day, right? And he's saying he's not a Negro. He's a different race. He's a Hebrew, okay? He said his face is just burnt. So you do see that your skin is darker, but they're still having this cognitive dissonance. They do not want to be Negroes. They do not want to be titled as Negroes. It's a very, very interesting conundrum for me. You know, it's very confusing for me. Let's watch another video and you'll see what I'm saying, like another example of this, okay?
First thing, we consider ourselves to be of the lost tribe of Israel and not Negroes. It's only that our faces are burnt that we look like Negroes. Also, we've been ruling part of Africa for hundreds of years. During the 16th century, and we ruled part of Egypt, Sudan, and as far down as Mozambique.
This is a very interesting phenomenon because of it's like they do acknowledge the fact that their skin is darker, but they don't acknowledge themselves as Negroes. Now, does Negro equal African? No, it does not equal African. But in this sense, right, it is a very confusing thing because of us as Africans, we see all ourselves as black and African. So if I see a black African from Ethiopia, I'm still going to say this person is black and African, right? But the older people, because I know a lot of Ethiopians now, they don't think like that anymore. Now, they've pretty much assimilated, right? And the reason why they've assimilated, right, is I think because of when they started realizing the way the world looks at them, they realized like, oh, and this is just an opinion because of course, this could be wrong, right? There could be some who have seen themselves like that from the beginning of time. But I think, especially the older ones, right? If any older ones do see themselves as black Africans or Negroes or Negroes, either one of those words being used, because we watched that other video, I think it's because maybe they have now seen the way the West looks at them. Some of them have come to the West and seen that they're not going to be treated like white people, right? And what ends up happening is that they now have to accept that they have to ally with other blacks because they realize they're also going through oppression, right? Because it's a very interesting phenomenon to see black people who don't accept being black people, or don't, not necessarily accept, but like, yeah, they don't see themselves as black people. They see themselves as a lost race tribe of Israel who's just burnt in the face. It's a very, very confusing thing. And just to show you how confusing it is for a black West African, let me give you an example of what one of the brothers said in the video, which we're about to watch right now.
From Ethiopia. I think it's high time Ethiopians come to the site where exactly they are. I usually wonder, are you Negroes? You are not Negroes. You say you are not Negroes. Are you white? You're not white. What are you?
Well, I told you the answer. We are not Negroes. We are one of the lost tribes of Israel. It's just because our faces are burned that we look like Negroes.
I've got the point, you are lost. I think that makes a conclusive entry.
You see what I'm saying? Like, you see how he said you are lost, right? Because for a black African, we cannot put that together in our heads. We just translate it as lost. But I'm starting to realize like it's not even necessarily a thing of being lost. It's more of a thing of, let me put it like this. Let me pretty much put it like this, right? They have been isolated for a long amount of time, right? They have conquered places, but it was still under their own rule, right? So they have their own ideology. They've always seen themselves as themselves, right? They usually mix with themselves. For this is history talking, and they've grown, right? Now, having to deal with these Western forces, with outside forces, they're now put into a situation where they're oriented and actually realizing that, oh shoot, no, I'm actually black and I'm actually African. And this is a very beautiful thing. And this is why I'm very Pan-African, is because it's like all of us Africans have different experiences, right? We have different experiences that are very similar. And sometimes some of us already know where we are, what we are, and then some of us actually had to experience different things to realize, oh shoot, I'm actually part of this group. And this is a very good example of that. Now,
I was living in one of the communities in New Jersey, which is a strictly white resident, and there I couldn't get a haircut for about 2 weeks because the white man don't know how to cut this type of hair. And one of the boys was joking to me that he said that the best engineers in the United States are working hard to design an instrument that will be of some use to cut this hair.
Can you imagine? You see the joke that they used on him? They told him the best engineers in the US are still trying to figure out how to cut his type of hair. Because of, he's an Ethiopian man, we could see, but he particularly has nappy hair like an African, right? Like a West African. So even a lot of Ethiopians have features that are very close to Africans, West Africans, not only the dark skin. Yeah, don't get me wrong, the forehead, the eyes, these are different features that are of course different from West Africans, but like in terms of skin color, hair texture, it varies widely in that country. And the funny thing is that a lot of people don't think this is the case in West Africa, but I guarantee you also in West Africa you see people with different features too. You see people with different texture of hair. Like you see Fulani people, for example, not only Fulanis, even under like the Negroes too, like quote unquote Negro people, like you see different features, like different nose shapes, different lips. Like that's one thing like people have to also realize. But this was a very interesting one for us to do, right? Like I wanted us to go back into history and see how this has changed over time. And now like you see Ethiopians and Somalis like in front of the Black Lives Matter protest, and I really appreciate that, and I really love that because we see evolution over time, how one ideology has changed through the generations. Because if you were to go ask any Ethiopian now, are you white? I mean, are you black? Hell yeah, I'm black. Are you African? At least, hell yeah, I'm African. So you know what I'm saying? It's a beautiful thing. I feel like we live and we learn. So with that being said, I just want to say, please like, share, subscribe, because guys, we're coming with the heat. You know what I mean? Coming with the heat.